Well, I took it a little bit further. I dismantled the entire top end of this motorcycle, and I checked the rocker arms. They checked out good. Then I checked the piston and the play in the crankshaft. The play in the crankshaft is good. The piston pin movement is good, but I found out that the oil ring was not moving properly. It was oiled up in its groove, and so I took that apart. I'm cleaning it right now, and but other than that, I did not see anything wrong with the engine. The piston and the cylinder here, I will be checking the clearance between those two just for the good measures and for educational purposes. And I checked the head, and the valves look good. The head from the bottom looked good. So I said, should I pull the valves or not? And I decided to pull the valves. And I'm glad that I did it, because let me flip this around. Can you see something wrong with this head? Yes, that's right. The intake valve seat is loose to the point where we can take it out with the hand. So that's no bueno. And the exhaust, I don't know how well you will be able to see that, but the pattern, the touch pattern all over is very poor, and it started to leak through. So I'm glad I did it. As you can see right here, the valve guides are perfect. It's just a matter of this valve seat right here. So what I'm going to do is contact my local machine shop and see if they can repair this head for us, and then if they do, we will put it back on the machine and see if it's quite like a dream. Believe it or not, but I bet you do believe it. The way my videos are published is one a week, and we haven't have a video on this thing for a couple of weeks. And 4 weeks later that you saw the previous clip, we have the head back from the machine shop. They put a new intake seat in this and lapped the valves and cleaned the head. They also had to machine this head. He said that he found a blow-by on the gasket. I don't know if that's true or if they just wanted to make a little bit more money on this than they would make if they just replaced the seat. So it took them 4 weeks to get it finished and get it repaired. But here we are 4 weeks later, as I said, and we are gonna get this thing put back together. Unfortunately, I wanted to cheap out on this, reuse the old head gasket, reuse the old gasket on the intake side, but they machined it, they took that gasket off, so I figured that I'm gonna replace the head gasket. So I have the head gasket over there, and I don't have this gasket, but I'm gonna show you a little spoiler. We have another head for this machine, and this head has the intact head gasket, the gasket for the intake. So I'm gonna unscrew those bolts, pop the head gasket, pop the gently extract this gasket and transfer it to that head on the table, and then we are gonna put it on this machine. Well, you can see the spoiler in the background, so I have to film the way I'm filming right now. I made a separate video on that, so do not worry, you will see that in upcoming videos. So now let's find ourselves a can of brake clean, and let's clean the piston, put the rings back together, clean the jack with the brake clean, then put back the piston on the rod and put it all back together. So let's get started with the piston. Okay, so let's start with the piston and the brake clean. So let's spray it down. That should be enough. And let's get the compressor cranking also, so I can blow the parts with compressed air. So let's get the piston back together. We will start with this one. It has a little reset on it, so you have to get this perforated ring first, and then those other rings on. So this, now the upper one. You shouldn't be doing this from the bottom, you should do this from the top, but this is easier for me doing this way. So let's get it in the upper groove. We are gonna help ourselves with a tiny screwdriver. Okay. And then the bottom one, clean it again. Now, as we can see, all our rings are moving freely, so that means we are good to go with this piston, and we can install it on the crank. Okay, so you are on the bucket. Since I can't afford anything more than a bucket for a tripod, so let's get this piston installed. We have an intake mark right here, an exhaust, so that means this piston should go on like this, and we have these little clips that hold it on the piston pin. So here is our piston pin, so let's get it installed here. Like so, and then the little clip. This is always a little bit tricky. That's why I have also those paper towels protecting the bottom from dust and also from pieces falling down into it, like for example this little circlip. So I'm gonna get this installed, and then we will proceed with the jug. Okay, I have the C-clip in. So now let's clean the jug, separate our piston rings. What you want to do is have these end gaps about 180 from each other. That way you in theory should minimize the blow-by. So let's get those all in order, then lube it up with a cheap oil and start putting the jug on. So here we have our jug. So I'm going to clean the meeting surfaces for this gasket and also the inside. I cheaped out and I'm not replacing the base gasket. So let's get this thing cleaned, and let's move with this forward. So right now I don't have anything better than this knife, so I'm gonna gently scrape out all the junk from this meeting surface, and hopefully it will suffice. And the brake clean wipe. Yeah, that's look pretty nice. So I found old oil jug. So you're sitting on an old oil jug. So I hope you don't mind that's a little bit wavy. So now I'm taking my finger that I dipped in oil, and I'm going to oil the insides of this jug and also the piston itself, so it doesn't run dry on the first start. So now I have to loosen my wire here so I can run the jug through, and then we should be able to put the piston in and proceed with the head. So this is tight, and line these studs gently. Now I don't have any compression tool to do this job, so you really can't squeeze any compression tools on these little engines. So let's get the rings in place and start lowering the jug gently down. like so. Now wipe out the excess oil. And now we need to insert the timing guide. It's right behind you. Hold on, I shift you a little bit. And the timing guide is in. I think we can proceed with the head. Our new head is here. As the jack, I'm going to spray it down with the brake clean it, and then we have to reinstall the dowel pins that should be here. I'm gonna install them on to the cylinder. We have them over here with the old head gasket here. 1 and 2. So let's get it clean and let's get it on the bike. Now with that head being nice and clean, I did not check the gasket. So let's open this package and see if we have our gasket. So Honda, genuine, made in China. Nice work, Honda, nice work. So let's eyeball it to the old one. Yeah, seems like the same. So let's open this up. I searched on the internet some information about these Honda CBFs, and it looks like they are not very reliable motorcycles. So this one, as you can see, is just pretty much a piece of steel, nothing to it. So, and it's air cooled, so you don't need sophisticated head gasket. So let's put it on the machine. Let's line up the dowel pins and then torque the head onto it. So I found another oil jack. So hopefully you're gonna stay and you don't fall on me. So let's get this gasket gently in. It's binding on the threads a little bit. Should it be this way or this way? No, I don't think so. It has to be this way. Judging by those bigger ports or the bigger holes for the dowels. Yeah, here it goes. Now let's put those dowel pins in and line it up properly, and then get the head on. So I've got the old head gasket and I can't see any signs of blow by, so they may be ripped me off a little bit at that shop, but it cost 75 bucks to redone the head, so I'm not complaining. So one dowel here and second one right here. So I think we are ready to put the head on. So let's see here. Throw the cable my way a little bit. Now I'm hitting on this guide, so let's make sure that the guides are in place, and we should here we go. Yeah, I think we are good here. Let's relocate this wire onto this side a little bit, like so. And now it's time for those two little dowel pins for the rocker assembly and the rocker assembly itself. Here is that little dowel pin. Hopefully you can see those two dowel pins, and I'm gonna sit you down again and let's get that rocker assembly on. Fine. Now let's, before we do that, yeah, we have the cam in the right spot. Now the bolts. So let's get those hand tied, and then they should be torqued down to 32 Newton meters, which seems like it's very low. But I found that in the manual, so I'm not gonna argue with that. Okay. Now let's get the 12 mil on the torque wrench and torque them down to 32 Newton meters. I will bring them 15, 15, 15 and then 32 at the end. So let's get it done. I'm gonna use two torque wrenches, the big one for the 32 Newton meters and the small one for 15. So first run with the 15. We are crushing that head gasket, so 15 on this. And now switch over to the 32 Newton meters. coil here is in the way. Yeah, I have to get this coil off. So that coil is out of the way. So let's torque it to 32 Newton meters. And the last one, hopefully I can get it from this side. Yes, I can. Watch your head. And 32. So I'm going to revise them again and then set the timing, and we should be good to go. And don't worry, I do not forget to put in these two, and those are 12 Newton meters. So now we can also check and set our valve clearances. Right off the bat, I can see that this intake valve is very loose. The exhaust one feels like it's okay, but the intake we are gonna have to address. So let's get back on those valves. Let's crack loose the nut, and we want less than 10 on the intake, and we have a giant play, I mean giant, on this one. So a little bit more. Now let's set the exhaust and start working on this head. Yeah, fine. That's good. So now let's set the timing, but for that I have to move this pile of junk, I mean tripod, through the way so I can see the timing mark on the crank. And I don't know if you can see that, but we are right on the money. So you can go back here and watch me doing this timing chain. So hopefully I'm doing this for the last time. So let's get rid of this piece of wire here. Come on, work with me, and get our timing gear in. Wow, first try, that's that's incredible. That's almost unbelievable. So let's put a dab of thread lock onto these bolts and gently install them. One in place, and oops, that's better. And then the second one, another dab. Let's get an 8mm and tighten them down, and then the tensioner. What was that? just a bolt. Then the tensioner, and we are ready to proceed. So the tensioner is in, this thing is tight, and now let's spin the engine a couple of revolutions and check if our marks will line up. Then I have to put in the temperature sensor, the boot for the injection, the exhaust oxygen sensor, which is right down there, and I will tune back in when we are trying to start this. Okay, I spared you the boring part of putting it back together. So I think we should have everything that we need for this bike to run. So let's prime it a couple times and hit the button and see what's gonna happen. I hope we have some fuel in it. Oof, are you nervous as I am? It runs. So far no strange noises, so I'm gonna let it run for a bit, and then we are going to rev it up a couple of times, let it go through the heat cycles, retorque the head, and then this should be over. The valve train is nice and quiet. Well, what do you think? I think we made it. I think we repaired this one. So the valve train is nice and quiet. So let's give it a rev and let's see. Yeah. No smoke, no knocking, no nothing. So I think we'll nailed this one. But it gave me a little hard time. I was hoping for something a little bit easier, but this was pretty easy. So let's shut it off and let's talk about it a little bit. So the bike runs. It runs perfect, almost perfect, and it's nice and quiet. I'm very pleased with the outcome of this repair. I hope that you learned something from this. Looking back in two parts, I guess, maybe one or two, I'm not sure how I revved this bike. I revved the living heck out of this bike. I rev it like to 10 or more grand. I'm glad that the travel of the valve is shorter than the actual width of the valve seat. That means that even if I rev it, the seat didn't have chance to walk out of the saddle in the head and jam and bend the valve and do more damage to this engine. So I'm glad that we didn't ruin it with our testing. I'm glad that the guy that wrote it before this didn't ruin it, because apparently he was riding it for a long time with this stick, and he thought that the valves need checking, as I said in the first video, and yeah, it was the valves that needs to be checked. So drop some comments in the comment section if you like this series, and if you learned from it, and if you have some experience with those CBFs, drop it down in the comments too. I'm glad to hear that. So until then, please, if you're not currently subscribed, consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps to grow my channel, and maybe one day I'm going to be able to afford a better camera and better motorcycles to work on. So subscribe, like, comment, share. All these things help to grow my channel, and I'm really appreciating it. Thanks for your comments on the other videos, and I'm out of here. Be safe out there. I hope we'll see in the next video. Bye.